It was a beautiful morning, but it was one that Karma Akabane had no intention of seeing. The lump in the single bed in his room gently rose and fell as the boy breathed quietly in his sleep. That was, until the alarm clock on the side of his bed began suddenly blaring at him with its loud ringing. Karma shot his head up suddenly and at the loud noise before turning it off and drowsily swinging his legs over the side of the bed. His tail slumped against his legs softly once it had freed itself from the warm folds of the large blanket. His ears were flopped against the top of his head as he drowsily made his way to the bathroom after grabbing his outfit. He yawned suddenly, while halfway there, and stretched himself, his large wings extending to their full length before returning to their place at his side. Now much more awake, he finished walking to the bathroom, the one connected to his room, and set his clothes down before beginning to undress himself. Turning the shower on and stepping into the water, he let the liquid splash noisily against his smooth yet scarred skin. Once he had cleaned himself and washed his hair, including the fur on his tail and the feathers of his wings, he turned off the water and stood there for 10 more minutes and dozed off slightly. By the time he came to, he had already dried a little bit. "Oh shit!" he yelled as he realized that he was now late. He all but jumped out of the water, slipping on the moist tile and landing on his back. He quickly got up and dried off, dressing himself quickly and brushing his hair before running to the kitchen and stopping at stopping at a sudden halt the moment the opened curtain of It's autocorrect. She put an autocorrect. Sudden halts the moment the opened curtain of one of the many windows blinded him, reminding him to put on his contacts. He zipped back to his bedroom and carefully put on the special attire before running to the kitchen and grabbing an apple and a prematurely made bento box. With these things now grabbed, he opened the main doors to the mansion and zipped out, locking the main gate as he went. He jumped out onto one of the lower roofs once he had left the forest, and began to jump building the building as a shortcut. As he went, he focused on putting his jacket on once his demonic features had disappeared. I'm fucking late, he ranted as he zoomed to the main part of the town, which was a good distance away from his home. He began sprinting faster to his destinations into the woods. With Class 3E. The students waited with anticipation for the new arrival, and most of them felt great relief that the freak had not shown up. Okita twiddled her thumbs nervously with anticipation, while Chiba, who sat in the desk in front of the new student's own desk, Taraska, who sat 2 desks to the right of Karma, felt nervous at meeting the so-called psychopath, but tried to plan on a way to pin the boy down as his lapdog. He didn't show up. He had not shown for the first 2 periods of class. Kuro-sensei sighed disapprovingly but continued with the classes. The students felt relief that they wouldn't have to see the creep for another day, and continued with the class cheerfully. Nala, please be quiet. She's gonna bark at me, I know it. 2 hours later, PE. Karasuma looked at the students curiously. He had been told that there would be a new student today, but had seen none. With a slight shrug, he had the kids play tag with rubber knives for about an hour before noticed a bit of commotion with some of the nearby birds. They had taken to flying away, which meant that someone had run through their feeding area where the students had placed bird seeds not too long ago. He heard a distant yell from Arena. He must be here then, he thought to himself out loud, and looked at his target, who was also looking at the current schoolhouse. Before he could say anything, he felt a piercing gaze from one of his students and looked in the direction of the stair. It had been Nagisa, who had been covered in sweat from running away from the other students in hopes of saving his life. "We're done," he said simply after a few more huffs. He had been the last person standing without an alliance, and as such had been targeted by most everyone else. And being chased by a bunch of people carrying knives was one way to win a marathon. Note the sarcasm. And I see a fourth wall break. Kind of funny. Construction crew! Time to get back to the story. All of you, run 2 laps and then go in to change before the bell. Karasuma yelled loudly, being answered by a bunch of annoyed sighs and the sound of running footsteps. Arina was walking up to them, clearly agitated, but there was someone else behind her that caught the teacher's interest. Ah, Akabane, or do you prefer Karma-kun? You're late. Koro-sensei yelled with excitement, Karma's eyes widening slightly, and he stood still. Scroll. I need to get this thing looked at. Staring at the yellow creature for a good 10 seconds before smiling slightly and swallowing a bit of his apple, which sat in one of his hands. Just Karma, I guess, Mr. He paused and tried to look for a name tag, but found none present. Kuro-sensei, he replied with clear excitement. Karma stretched his arm out as if to shake. Kuro-sensei returned the gesture eagerly. This is going so much better than I expected. I thought he was going to be some sort of delinquent. He cheered happily in his head. The moment he touched hands with the redhead, however, his hand disintegrated into yellow goop. Wow, these things actually work? Karma asked in bewilderment, flashing his palm to the teachers to let them see that he had torn up a rubber blade and taped them upon his palm. He had his eyes trained on the yellow octopus-like being, with a hint of curiosity in them as he eyed the surprised creature. So, you don't have blood? He started to walk closer to Kuro-sensei and began poking at whatever yellow substance he could find. Wow, you're squishy. Karma began to press and poke the skin of Kuro-sensei's face. Squish, 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 he started to say as he repeatedly poked the strange person. Irina was attempting to withhold her laughter as she watched the stunned Kuro-sensei, who was staying still, as Karma played with the yellow flesh. When you're done playing around, I want you to come to the lounge. Scroll. This is getting annoying. To the lounge so I can show you around. Karasuma said as he withheld his amusement at the younger's antics. Squish, Karma said with one final time before following the black-haired teacher. Irina lost it, bursting out laughing, drawing the attention of some of the finishing students. The first thing they noticed was Mrs. Bitch laughing like there was no tomorrow, then Kuro-sensei's state of expression, and then the receding redhead. When Miss Helovich finally stopped laughing, she remembered how she was really run over by the redhead. Literally run over, as in he had been jumping off of a tree at a crazy fast speed and couldn't slow down enough to stop from smashing into her. Seriously, who uses trees as their mode of transportation? The kid's like a frickin' monkey, she thought to herself while looking back to her target, and attempted to stab him. She ended up with her hair up in a ponytail and her makeup redone. Wait, someone actually managed to injure Kuro-sensei? It says Yuma, but I don't know anyone that's named Yuma. Fuzuma? I think that's what it's supposed to be. I don't know. Anyway, they asked, full of surprise as she watched Kuro-sensei regenerate his hand. Nagisa, who was in the bed ways behind her, noticed the redhead and quickly grinned at him. Scrolling. Work, computer. Hey, Karma, wait up, he yelled as he ran after the strawberry. What's Karma? Karma sat his bento down on the longer table inside the lounge before turning to Karasuma. So, the teacher began, why did you wait to come to school until it was already almost halfway over? He asked with a voice of authority. I'm gonna burp. He asked with a voice of authority and curiosity. Karma decided that he didn't like the tone used for him and scowled at the taller male. Gee, I don't know. Maybe it's because this place is so frickin' isolated that it takes forever to find without a map. he replied with a good hint of sarcasm in his voice. He made a gesture to the surrounding walls as emphasis. Note to self, this kid has mood swings, Karasma thought while ignoring the piercing glare, but those eyes seemed to stab him like daggers. I'll show you to your classes and where you sit before in class. Lunch starts in about 10 minutes, which gives you about 30 minutes before class starts. A pause. What are you doing? Karasma deadpanned as he watched Karma go through the fridge. If I'm going to deal with this octopus, octopi, whatever, then I need to learn about his likes and dislikes. And I can tell just by looking at the stuff that he is a major sweet... Ooh! Karasma looked at the strawberry oddly, as he picked up a light pink gelato. I think it's supposed to be gelato, but she put gelato. A small smiling twitched at his lips as he watched the younger male lick the cold treat happily. It would appear that he isn't the only one, he noted lightly, at another sudden mood swing. Karma purred with joy at the treat. When it was made clear that the boy was not going to follow him, nor leave the treat, it just ends like that. It doesn't say anything. It just goes into another sentence. We do need it. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to redo that little part. Is it glitching? I'm sorry. I'm not going to edit this. Screw it. Just deal with it. It would appear he isn't the only one, Karasma noted lightly. Another sudden mood swing. Karma purred with joy at the treat. And when it was clear that the boy was not going to follow him, nor leave the treat, Karasma spoke again. We do need to talk about that pranking streak of yours. The only mischief allowed is against the target and him alone, he said with a slightly threatening tone. Karma paused suddenly before smirking evilly. You wouldn't happen to have any powdered version of that stuff that makes him go into goo, would you? Karma asked, a devilish thought clearly in the making of his mind. Karasma dug into a drawer and pulled out some hardened anti-Kora Sensei BBs. These are the best that I have at the moment, he said calmly, handing a small container of the even smaller ammo to the redhead. These should do, Karma said with a sing-song voice. These should do, Karma said with a sing-song voice, licking the ice cream again before getting out a stone bowl from his bag and some kind of stone stick, both of which being an old version of a grinder for herbs. He turned the small bullets into powder before returning to the fridge and carefully putting it in some of the strange foods from some other place that Kora Sensei had gotten. Hey, quick question. Do these do anything to humans once ingested? Karma asked as he put some more of the powder into one of the octopus's hideouts of candy. It was rather easy to find due to the boy's keen nose and knack for finding good hiding places. There shouldn't be any negative side effects to anyone other than him. Why? Karasma asked with an interest as Karma jumped down from the counter as he deemed himself satisfied with his work. You may see, or you may not be around. I don't need to tell you. Karma replied almost emotionlessly, with a smile plastered on his face. He put the gelato back into the fridge to keep it cool until he had finished his meal, which was easy, since he wanted to save most of it for dinner. Anyway, seeing as his home was a decent distance away. He put his bento back into the fridge and took out the gelato again. And now we can go to the class. But first, I'll need more ammunition. Beginning of the next period. Kora Sensei was not happy. He had been injured by the student on their first try, and then he had the gall to make fun of him by poking his face and calling him squishy? He had never been so humiliated in his life. Well, that wasn't entirely true. He has been humbled plenty of times in his life. He was, seeing as he was a very proud super pervert, but that wasn't the point. What it was the fact that he had been humiliated by the newest student in his class, and publicly at that too. He sighed and opened the fridge in the teacher lounge to see that his gelato had been removed from the fridge, when it had been his delicious treat of the day. Giving an indignant sigh, Kora Sensei slammed the fridge shut before realizing that he had run out of time. It was already almost time for class, and there was only 2 more classes left. He had to teach the students for one more period before they were to go to English class with Arena. Scroll. I need to get this thing checked out. There. Giving another sigh, he went to class. It was like any other day again, until around the time at the end of class when Koro-sensei noticed a certain redhead eating a certain missing gelato. You! Koro-sensei barked suddenly, his face going uncharacteristically red. You took my gelato! I had to fly through the coldest layer of the atmosphere to keep that thing cold. Do you have any idea how freezing that was? He yelled slightly. Karma, smirking and bringing the treat to his lips again and slicking again, slowly pushing the more melty areas of the cold treat and carefully covering the decent-sized hole in the dessert. Well, it was just sitting there in the teacher's lounge, Karma said calmly with an innocent smile. Just sitting there? It was the very back of the fridge to keep it cold, Koro-sensei argued, flailing his tentacles around wildly, as if to make a point. If you want it back, you could have just said so, Karma deadpanned, still giving a slight smile. Mumbling something about delinquents under his breath, Koro-sensei walks down to the other easel, to the back of the row where Karma sat. Around halfway there, however, he stepped on some of the many anti-him BBs whom he had failed to notice. His lower tentacles turned into slush the moment they made contact with the small spheres. Anti-me BBs? He yelled out in shock, rather than pain, and jumped back a decent bit out of the way, sending many of the small objects flying around the floor. Karma laughed as he took out his hidden gun and fired 3 shots at the yellow target, who dodged with slight difficulty due to the lack of lower tentacles. Karma laughed again before walking up to the teacher and shoving the partially eaten treat into the Koro-sensei's grasp. See, now is that so hard? He asked, his voice laced with slight venom and a mocking hidden tone somewhere in the background. Before Koro-sensei had time to retort, the bells... can't speak now. One moment. I don't know where I was anymore. Okay, I was right there. Before Koro-sensei had time to retort, the bells rang, signaling the final class of the day was to start, and this class's time was over. Karma was gone before anyone realized, leaving his mess all over the floor. Giving another sigh, Koro-sensei spoke up to his other students. All right, class, be careful on the way out and don't slip on me, he finished awkwardly. The students leaving while being careful so as to not step on the yellow goo and small spears had been flung over the room due to Koro-sensei's earlier leap. 1 or 2 people tripped on the small spears, but other than that, nothing really happened. The rest of the day went off without a hitch, no interruptions, and after this, and soon enough, the day ended and many students left for home. In the teacher's lounge, Arena laughing sounded throughout the enclosed room, as she had just been told of Karma's actions during one of the classes. So, he really managed to hurt you 2 times in a single day? She laughed as Koro-sensei had dramatic tears running down his face. Yes, isn't it terrible? Koro-sensei replied, equally loud as he was when telling the story. What's horrible is that the brat might kill you before I do, she said, trailing off in the end. The sound of the door opening sounded in the background, causing the room's 3 presumed and only occupants. What's horrible is that the brat might kill you before I do, she said, trailing off in the end. The sound of the door opening... It says sound twice. The sound of the door opening resounded in the room, causing the room's 3 presumed occupants to look up to see the redhead, once again invading the fridge. Oh no! He's returned to steal my ice cream again! Koro-sensei yelled dramatically. Nah, I'm just getting my bento box, Karma corrected. Grassman looked up to the redhead to address the redhead, relief being obvious. Koro-sensei reached to the fridge and... Wait, what? Did she put the wrong name? Nah, I'm just getting my bento box, Karma corrected. Koro-sensei looking up to address the redhead, relief being obvious. Koro-sensei reached into the fridge and pulled out the cold treat with ease so that he could finally consume it in the minutes to come. I'm assuming that you have finished cleaning up your mess? He asked, referring to the mess of yellow and pink in the other room. Yeah, already taken care of, Karma replied with an eye roll before leaving with his bento and box in hand, and grabbing his oddly full backpack from near the door, where he had placed it before entering the room. Grasma mused to himself at how the redhead of a teen had gone unnoticed until he had opened the fridge door. He should have been pretty easy to see, considering the fact that he had vibrant red hair, after all, and was fairly easy to spot in the crowd. Unknown to him, similar thoughts rang through the other two remaining occupants of the room. Time skip. Ooh, it's a time skip. Another time skip. Ooh. Karma opened a jar from his bag and poked at the yellow goo inside curiously. It had seemed to become slightly more liquidy than it had been solid, but wasn't too far off from its original source. Karma looked at the goo again before taking a small scrap of metal and injecting it into the liquid. It melted in moments. Karma, eyes wide, stared at the goo in shock for a moment, the amount of time needed to blink one's eye, before closing up the jar and slipping it back into his bag, right next to the other jars of yellow goo and plastic baggies of small pink spheres. He smirked as he heard a loud noise, a shriek of surprise from a female and horror from a male. It looked as like it finally happened. Koro-sensei had his small eyes opened as wide as physically possible in blatant surprise, his ice cream on the ground and yellow goo flowing from his mouth as he had nearly consumed the objects of his destruction. He made a pitiful noise and forced out the remaining goo and ice cream and let it fall onto the floor below. Irina, who stood right next to him, had the goo splashed over onto her shoulder and a little bit into her hair. Karasma looked at the two before looking down to the lost treat. Karma, who managed to mix the pink powder into the ice cream and planned for Koro-sensei eating it. Not only that, but he also managed to pull a complete straight face, or poker face rather, while Koro-sensei was about to consume it. It was a very good act. And that little kid can do such a good act. No, that's my saying that. That's not him saying that. This is what he says. That plan, Krasna began to himself. Did that kid really come up with that? That is the end of chapter 2. I will not be submitting the third chapter tonight. I have read enough of this stuff, and the next thing I do will probably be the other stories a little bit, and back to this one tomorrow. I don't know. Goodbye. Probably should have warned you about the language earlier. I don't know if I did.